So the subject of this talk, I should ask you first to turn your microphones on. You push the little button up and the light should be green. The subject of this little talk here is key learnings from entering a big pharma partnership, because that is something that all of you have actually experienced. And I would like you to start just with a short introduction of yourselves, and you can start, Børge.
Thank you, Jonas. I'm Børge Jakobsen. I'm a chemist of background, and came into Bayer via the acquisition of a Norwegian startup company, Algeta. So I've been around in the pharma for 30 years-ish, manufacturing, project management, and CMC.
Okay, thank you. Short and snappy.
Okay, thank you, Jonas. And also now opportunity for me to say thank you to you for inviting AstraZeneca to this meeting. It's really a pleasure to be here. Really a pleasure also for me because I started my career in Sweden in '96 as a postdoc at Lund University. So I was here 1 year and then moved up to Umeå University to stay there 1 year with Jan Kihlberg. So I am educated as an organic chemist and with a PhD in organic chemistry from Göttingen University. The plan was to stay in Sweden for 1 year. I am still here, so after the postdoc time, I joined at the time AstraHessle in Mölndal. Now it is AstraZeneca Gothenburg. I worked in research in many roles there, and since 2012, I am director in AstraZeneca's business development organization.
Thank you.
So I'm Martin Olovsson. I did my studies here as well, actually, but in business administration. So I have a commercial background from pharma, started within AstraZeneca for 25 years, where 20 of those were in pure commercial roles, everything from selling Losec, we talked about it earlier, up to having a significant P&L for the Nordic Baltics for the company, but also spent 4 years on our global franchise in terms of our inhalers, until 2 years ago, when I had the opportunity to spin out from AstraZeneca, the company that we today call OnDosis. So that's me.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Per. I'm one of the co-founders of Pilloxa, which we started in 2015. My background is in business. I studied like 200 meters from here at LTH, so it's very, very nice to be back. Pilloxa is a Swedish digital health company based in Stockholm, and we're working with improving patient adherence and patient engagement within clinical trials and patient support programs. And I'm super happy to be here, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Martin, could you also just shortly tell us a little bit about, like Per did, about OnDosis? What do you do?
Yeah, I think like we are probably having identified the same dilemma, that there is a quite absurd idea around putting 10 years and $1 billion into pharmaceutical development, and then that ends up in a pill, which disappears in space, and nobody knows what's happening, and the opportunity to individualize dosing is difficult. So we inherited in OnDosis an idea from AstraZeneca to be able to use granules or pellets or microparticles and integrate them into a digital handheld device, which then would enable you to do much more individualized, personalized dosing and flexible dosing. Connect it to enable adherence programs, patient engagement, data capture, protect the medicine from people that should not use it, and also, in a way, simplify swallowing for patients that have a dry mouth or kids and so on. So that's the idea we inherited, and I brought the thing because it's handheld, and today it looks like this. So it's basically a handheld device which has a part which is reusable for a year, and a disposable part that keeps 1 month of treatment that you get from the pharmacy. So that's the product.
Okay. It's actually very similar to my son's Nintendo Wii control.
On purpose, because what we didn't want, that's interesting when you think about product development. First we said, we're going to do something so innovative, it needs to look different. But then you scare patients away. It needs to look intuitive, and it shouldn't scare people away that it's something new and dangerous. It should be something new, but also familiar. So many people say that, and actually I take that as a positive, let's say, grade for the development team.
Yeah.
Really.
I can just also add in terms of product development, because we also had similar discussions, and what we also found when it comes to patient adherence, and especially poor poor adherence is that people don't want to show that they're taking medication. So if you look at these like old pill boxes from the 1950s, they all very stigma. They look like they're from the like someone who's 80 years old who's using them, and the younger generation don't want to use that. So we made a very camouflage product, which you can't really sense that it is medications inside.
That's interesting. Per, you, Pilloxa, actually entered into a partnership with Bayer, and that was as recent as, was it March this year, or was it?
Yeah, we announced our partnership in 2019, but we've been working together since 2017. But
yeah. But it would be interesting to hear a little bit about the road to getting into that partnership. What were you? At what point did you start the relationship, so to speak, with Bayer?
Yeah, so we started in the spring of 2017 when we approached Bayer and saying that, well, we have this interesting concept, we think you could really benefit from it, and then we were able, after a couple of meetings, to get a pilot project going, which we then did in 2018. And from there, Bayer could see that we are reasonable to work with, and then we proceeded to deepen our relationship within 2019, which was the one that we announced. And from there, we have now initiating additional trials to strengthen our partnerships.
All right. And just to be super clear, then, because we've seen here, they've shown the slides and how to contact them. How was it in practical? Who did you contact and where did it happen?
So we actually did through cold mailing, which was apparently it works, and we just sent them to I think it was the marketing department, and we knew that pharma likes things that healthcare providers likes. So we went to the healthcare providers and said that, well, we have this thing. Can you write a letter of a recommendation saying that this is something that you will like to use in your practice? And then we took this letter from a professor and we went to Bayer saying that, well, could you finance something that we can do together with a clinic? So that's how we got their initial interest, and I think it took like 2 meetings to get to that point, which was super swift. It usually takes like a year or so. So thank you for that.
And Martin, so coming from being a Spinout, then that's a completely different approach from cold emailing. And can you tell us a little bit about how that project was spun out? And yeah.
I will, but I also would probably guess Kai would want to chip in on that. But for me, it was a situation of after 25 years and having a great time within AstraZeneca, being a bit urged to do something different, and bumped into a person who is leading the bioventure called Børge, who said, we have some exciting projects that we would want to test if they can get better traction, more air under the wings externally. And we want someone with an entrepreneurial mindset, but also with the skills and capabilities and some seniority that understands deal making, the commercial aspects and the development aspects in pharma. Would you be interested to engage into conversation around that? So that was basically a coffee break discussion in that situation. And that's easy, but then you want to put that on paper, and we come back to that. Then suddenly, it gets a little bit tougher. But I guess, Kai, you have more insights in this.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit a special project because it's a spin-out project. So I think those of you who have a little bit of insight into how Big Pharma is working probably understand what we did here was quite innovative, and we had not done it before. So I think the story is we had a prototype of a device for a project that we had stopped for internal development for certain reasons. And this prototype was on the shelf and no longer a use for AstraZeneca. Then, as Martin mentioned, we had, I think, we have the BioHub at AstraZeneca Gothenburg. Really, I think with Magnus Björksen as the head of it, one of the most creative, out-of-the-box thinkers that I've ever met in my whole life. So I think it was his proposal that he said, okay, we have this device, why are we not thinking about a Spinout, and why not, I think, establishing this new company on the BioHub. And I have already an entrepreneur that would be interested to do it, and I actually need someone that is negotiating this deal on behalf of AstraZeneca. And it will not take a lot of time, Kai, and are you willing to help? I think, knowing Magnus very well, I said, yes, I'm definitely willing to help. Sounds very exciting. I had to clarify with my boss at the time because I knew it would take quite some time. And this is where the relationship between Martin and myself started really, I think, I being on the side of AstraZeneca as a deal negotiator and Martin as a new entrepreneur driving OnDosis forward.
Great. Jan Børge, you were, like you said, you were there when Algeta was then became a part of Bayer, and that actually started with a license deal, the first. Could you tell us a bit about the background for that?
Yes, for Algeta, it was founded in 1997, so they have been working for a long time to develop a novel platform for alpha emitters to start using that in oncology. So it took some time, and it was always a rush for money. That period I was not in the company, so they entered a license agreement, a partnership agreement with Bayer in 2009. And they have just started the phase 3 studies. They knew this was kind of a Viking mentality with this startup company. So they started the phase 3 study. They knew they didn't have the money to complete the phase 3 studies. So they had to enter the partnership with Bayer. And that happened in 2009. And then it was a period for 5 years where there was a partnership, and then we launched together, Algeta and Bayer, the first product coming out of this Algeta company in 2013, and 9 months after we were acquired by Bayer. So it was a partnership and then a full acquisition of Algeta. So I experienced both phases actually, so it was quite different being still an independent company in a partnership agreement with Bayer, and then after the acquisition, full integration of the Algeta company.
Mm. And then having been in sort of different phases of a partnership and with a different entry point, it would be interesting to hear then from a perspective where your company was actually then acquired by Bayer, how the integration phase, how was that?
Yes, after the acquisition in 2014, overall, I would say it was a good takeover. I have been around in this business for some time. I've experienced acquisition, mergers from GE Healthcare, Nycomed. So it was a nice and smooth process where the functions which was retained. So Bayer decided to retain the special company competence within the Algeta company. And but of course, it took some time to get connected to the new functions, being research, being the development functions, being the manufacturing functions, and of course there was some battles around the clinical development and the regulatory, where there was complementary and also same competence from before. So those areas was a little bit cumbersome. But for the science technology part, they more or less operated in the same way as before, but with the new reporting line in a global function. And it was more silos, of course. And going from a fast, nimble, direct decision-making structure, we went into a more big pharma thing where it's functional silos, things takes more time. Alignment was a big word, which wasn't apparent at all in Algeta. What does it mean? It means time. Things takes time. So that was some adjustment on that part.
Okay. Per, You are sort of, in comparison, in an early phase of a partnership. What are your expectations going forward in terms of, the outcome, of course, of the partnership?
No, so I think we have several expectations, and we're already getting value from them. There was a slide there saying like access to experience, access to knowledge. We're already getting that. We're already starting new projects together, access to different types of funding, and also for us when we do like when we do additional sales to other companies, it's obviously super good to have a strong partner such as Bayer to show them that we are actually capable of delivering value to Big Pharma. So I would say that's the main aspects that we're looking forward, but also getting right now in the partnership.
Mm. And if we talk, you listed a number of benefits, I would say. Are there any cons to this story?
Obviously so I would say that we're internally is very, very agile. We take risk. We work very fast. So it's been a new mindset of us coming to Big Pharma, since it takes a lot of time. They're usually quite risk averse. They maybe don't. I mean, we're all in the same room working together, and then you talk to someone and saying, yeah, we will have a meeting in, I don't know, 3 months to discuss this, because then we will all be in the same room. Whereas when they say, well, can you talk to the legal department? Then I would just say, yeah, I will be back in 2 minutes, because I am also the legal department. So it's been like a process to understand each other there, but we're getting into it. And then also from the beginning, when we try to get the partnership, I think it's a good mindset to see that it's our top prio to get this partnership, but it's probably prio number 30 or something for the guy or woman that you're talking to, because they have so many other things to talk about. So you really have to push it in order for them to think about you all the time. So that's also a thing that's worked out very well for us.
And Martin, from your perspective, being a spin-out from AstraZeneca and then working at AstraZeneca BioVenture Hub, how do you feel about that? Has there ever been a cultural clash for you?
Yes, there has. I mean, because suddenly you get different shoes on, and you realize that the company you loved from the inside for 25 years actually have some of the attributes that Per just now talked about. Big companies want to be agile and fast and so on, but I think it's fair to say, and this is not AstraZeneca because we haven't made a deal with a German company, we are in a discussion with a Japanese company. They are not as fast as they do believe they are, and they are absolutely not as fast as they want to be, I think. Which is just, that's because decision making by committee, and the committee meets every second week or every month, and live with it. And you are maybe the top 3 priority if you're very good, top 30 if you're not so good, but you're never number 1. And to make a deal with AstraZeneca or whoever, Bayer, is for a small company number 1. So I think there is a big culture clash. And obviously there is some frustration sometimes, and Kai has to carry that, but because you know how it could be within. So you think you understand the animal you're working with, but you realize you don't, because you're on the outside. Suddenly you're on the outside, right? Yeah. But then again, I think the benefit we have is that we are sprung from there, which means that there are stakeholders within that still sees OnDosis as a little bit of their baby, which means that when the formal route is tough and hard and by committee, there might be the informal route, which is a cup of coffee and resolving some stuff. Meanwhile, the process is kind of going. There are different ways of doing things, behind the scenes, and I think we can take some advantage of that without giving too much away here on TV. We now and then are using that opportunity, let's say.
That's great. Jan Børge, and how was it for you then to start working with Bayer and them coming from Germany, I presume, and into a small Norwegian company? You were about 40 people when this acquisition happened. Is that correct?
Yes. When we did the acquisition, the company was larger. Okay. When we entered the license agreement in 2009, we were around 40 persons. But the deal with Bayer was to have a co-promotion. So Algeta was building up their own sales and marketing organization in the United States. So at that time point, we have launched the product. It was a company of 180 people. But still a small company. One was placed in the US, the sales and marketing, and then the Norwegian company. And of course, it was on, if you talk about cultural clashes, of course, it's about the spirit. It's to be close to the baby where you have been trying to nurture and get flying for like 15 years for some of the people in the company. And then suddenly comes into a company with many products. And there is not only one focus. So, of course, things take more time. And that was frustrating for many. And as also mentioned, steering committees. Yes, things takes time. It needs to go to steering committee. And for the Algeta people, it was important to get into the right steering committees. So we could have a focus on our product and also try to take part of the decision making for our kind of product.
We also, I mean, I know that the Algeta acquisition was quite a large deal, at least in a Nordic perspective. I think it was something in 19 billion Swedish kronor.
Right.
Correct. And about negotiating a deal, we saw that earlier in a slide that openness is important and being transparent with your strength and perhaps your weaknesses. But Kai, from a business development perspective, what are your best advice to your counterparts, or if I may say that, the smaller companies, when it comes to actually negotiating?
I think I would mention the point that Åsa already mentioned earlier. It is really about building trust between the persons that have to negotiate the deals. And this is what I mentioned earlier. Martin and I, we came into this sitting on different sides, and we had the task to get an SA transfer agreement in place, shareholder agreement, because we also got support from the Gothenburg University Ventures for these deals, and we were also in agreement that we wanted to have also a collaboration between OnDosis and AstraZeneca. So we had 3 agreements to negotiate to each other within this environment that you just described in the Big Pharma giving away an asset. So we had to involve all the senior leaders. I think we still did a quite good job because some things were done after half a year. But I know that Martin, of course, thinks we could have done things much, much faster. I can set this in relation to other deals that we have done in AstraZeneca, but I think it has not worked if Martin and I not always had come back to, okay, now let us sit down. We want to solve this together. I think I can be very honest. We had discussions that were not always pleasant, but I think to have the trust for each other and say, we want to make a deal here together was, I think, from my perspective, the most important thing.
I sort of envisioned negotiating as a Spinout, that you're kind of like my son negotiating with me over getting paid to mow the lawn or do the dishes. But I guess you have to be a bit more professional about these things. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So, sorry, Martin.
Yeah, and I think that was a bit of a, to be also totally honest, I realized that you needed to be that. You realize that this is not a son negotiating with father about, borrowing the car of a weekend. It is something sharp and something that AstraZeneca needed to go fairly high up to do and had driving forces which were different than the driving forces of OnDosis. So it was cuddly from my side in the beginning until I realized this is actually not for fun. This is real. And that took a few weeks and months of friction before I realized, no, okay, so I need to step up here because this is not a game. We will not pull this off just by being, let's say, colleagues, friends with a shared vision and ambition. We need to do this properly and roll the sleeves up. So that took some time.
But you landed it.
We landed well.
Yeah.
And we probably should stay. I think we still have a collaboration. AstraZeneca is still, I think, owns 19% equity in OnDosis. I sit on the board for OnDosis, and I think it is really, really nice to see that this company that we formed in 2017 is doing very well. So it was worth the hard work.
Yeah. It almost sounds like when I say to my son then that you can keep negotiating, but you're living in my house. So, Per, from your perspective, then coming completely from the outside, approaching a big pharma, and more or less saying that we have this, are you interested? How was the negotiating part for you guys? Was there a negotiation?
So there was. There was two parts to it. The first one in 2017. Then I think we made it very easy because we presented a project which was very easy to accept in terms of money, etc. So we got the foot in. So there was, as far as I know, not so much negotiation. And that was a strategic decision as well for us because we know that it will be beneficial for us in the long term. Then on the second part. There were definitely some negotiations and things heated a little bit, but I think we were very happy once we got out of it, and it's a both win-win situation. It's also a happy, and we definitely came out happy from it. So we're super happy about it.
Great.
Make a small amendment to that. Still live in my house. I think the right thing to say is, Dad, I'm 18, and although I borrow your car this weekend and now and then, I'm grown up, I'm making my own decisions, and you can't interfere. So I think there is something around that. You need to move out and become your own, even if you're a spin-out. If you think you live in your father's house, you will never strive, and you will never be able to attract a deal from a Pfizer or a Bayer if they would believe that actually, legally and also mindset-wise, you're AstraZeneca's son. So you need to be able to stand on your own feet, right, and be a mature individual as a company. So I think just as a small amendment to the
Yeah, that's great.
Story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to also add to the acquisition of Algeta and Bayer. It was a successful story actually, and after the acquisition of Algeta in 2014, Bayer have actually invested more than 100 million euro in Oslo. We have retained the major part of the Algeta people, so we are still like 80 people from the previous Algeta company, and we have retained the production in Norway. So they have put a lot of trust in the Norwegian organization and also put Oslo on the map for the R&D hubs in the Bayer globally on R&D. So it has been a successful acquisition, a good story. So I would just wanted to add that as well. Important.
That was a very good addition. Our time has actually run out, and I think it's great to end it on a positive note like that. With a success story. We're looking forward to following OnDosis and Pilloxa's stories, and hopefully they will end up as big as successes. Thank you very much for joining us here today. Let's give them a warm hand.